Well, Mama say, Mama sa, Mama makusa. Welcome to the Sixers Talk
Like,
podcast, brought to
what?
you by
Why
Wilmington
can't you just have
University.
a nice, normal hello?
Or no Roger, no rerun, no rent, as the kids used to say.
No, just hello, everyone. Welcome to our program.
Oh, your voice sounds so good. You're so sharp. You get it. Welcome to the podcast. Good to see
If you're gonna
everybody.
say it, you got to give a little oomph to it. Mama say, Mama sa, Mama makusa. Come on, that's right.
Yeah,
No, just feel free to
that's
jump
a
in
good
here at
Michael
any
Jackson
point.
one. Yeah. Danny Parmells, Noah Levick, Amy Fadul. I'm still battling some little stuffy noseness, so excuse. But we are good. Good to see you guys. We won. The Sixers won. Not we, because I'm not on the team, but they won 109-103 over the Washington Wizards. You can't lose to the Wizards, right?
Listen, they tried. They
It looked like
it. So just a little sidebar. We're obviously here. Noah's down doing his thing, like courtside, watching the game like a proper reporter. I'm getting ready to go on set because we have a fourth quarter hit. We come on and say, here's what's coming up on the postgame show. And as I'm walking down, Danny, who I have to walk past in the newsroom, just looks at me and goes, they're going to lose this. They're not going to lose this game, are they? And I just turned. I was like, oh my God.
it might have been more negative than that. It might have been a little bit.
It might have been more negative. But theirs was still like a lot of time. And the Wizards hadn't even tied it. I looked at him like he was crazy. The thing is, Danny wasn't crazy. And they tried to lose the game. And then Gershon Yabusele and Tyrese Maxey said, not so fast. But wow, that was you have a 6-point win against a 6-win Wizards team is something. It's something. But a great coach once told me there is no room for comments in the win-loss column. But I'm going to shove a bunch of comments. I'm just going to write really small.
Yeah, some Frenchman on Frenchman crime. Koulibaly denied at the rim by Gershon Yabusele in such an emphatic way to some flexing. And there was flexing after.
Oh, there was definitely a little flexing.
There was definitely some
French
flexing
too. And then they exchanged jerseys. No, how does that work? Like you just got stuffed at the rim by your fellow countrymen who you played with, and you lost the game because of it. And now it's like, hey, I mean, I guess you just put it, but I don't know. I guess it's just today's age, but that's crazy to me.
Yeah. So Yabusele actually said after the game that they discussed this over the summer during their time in the French national camp. So I think it was prearranged regardless of what unfolded in the game. And also Koulibaly, as the 20-year-old kid, probably doesn't feel like he's in a position where he can say no there. But yeah, Yabusele, what was the superior Frenchman, and the Sixers were, again, really lucky to have him in this game where they were again without their two top centers, and he filled in fantastically, 21-8, hit 5 threes, tying his high on the season, and he really came through in the clutch to avoid the sort of collapse the Sixers experienced in the Kings game. Although I guess they just kind of got it out of the way a little sooner this time. They did blow the 15-point lead, but then righted the ship and figured out a way to get the necessary win Wednesday night.
There was a interesting money line play with Yabusele threes and like the points last night's game for those that were paying attention. But listen, you look at games like that last night, they had to have it. They get the win. You kind of move on. You take it for what it is. They look so good in the first quarter. They had that little burst there. I think it was like a 14-0 runner at one point that they had. And, we look really good because from the last podcast, the social media team clipped a Yabusele praise.
We look like geniuses.
Yeah, so we look like Yabusele comes out and has this great game on super efficiency. Big contrast to what Tyrese Maxey was able to do last night because that was very Iverson-esque line of Tyrese Maxey. But so super efficient. What, 11 shots was it that he had last night, Yabusele?
Less than
that. It was 5 for 9 from 3. Yeah. It's 21-8 and 6 for 11. There you go. Yeah.
There you go. 6 for 11. Yeah. 5 for 9.
5 for 7 from 3. Yeah. So
come on. Hold up. You make 11 shots, 5 threes from Gershon. So
and you win by 6 points.
But So I guess the yin to Tyrese Maxey's yang, where he's forced into this role to be this volume shooter, because there's no Embiid and no
Paul George.
but that's just not him. He's not that kind of player necessarily. I think it was Coach Lynham. He says something to that effect that's like ringing in my ear about he never saw Tyrese Maxey as like like a real scorer necessarily, more or less like a great offensive player, but not necessarily a guy who's going to like shots up to get.
He's not a shooter, right? He can score at the rim. He can, maneuver all through the paint, and he is a great offensive weapon. But he's not Trae Young. He's not out there jacking it up 25, 30 times every single game. But in a game where you have very limited resources offensively, and we saw in the Suns game, they had 7 points off the bench.
You got your fingers right? There was a
7. Okay. Well, I thought I was going to go like this.
Right, okay.
I thought that would be harder to see. So
that's pretty good. Yeah.
Thank you. So you have to think on the fly. But yeah, so he knew that he had to score, and yet at the half he was 1 for 10 from 3. And that's a very unusual stat line because 10 threes really turned it on. Lot. That's a lot to take in a single half. But that also, I think, goes to the mindset of this team after that Suns game, after what happened on the road trip with the Kings game. It was like, all right, well, you better get the shots up, and some of them are going to go. I mean, I don't know. I can't believe that they even had that as a game, but Tyrese Maxey was great in the second half. He had 21 points in the second half. Obviously, his percentages were much better. They were really poor in the first half. But, yeah, to me, no, that just says, all right, if no one else is around, I got to go ahead and just jack it up as many times as I can, and hopefully 45% of them go in, and I score 30 points.
Yeah, it does feel, though, like sometimes he has the mentality this season when he's in the middle of a bad shooting night to just, keep hammering away in frustration. And I think that also is relevant in terms of, the no calls and his frustration there. Sometimes he just keeps going in there and saying, you got to call a foul at some point, right? And Nick Nurse has noted that recently, not with Tyrese Maxey specifically, but with the team at large. He said, look, there's some contact that's going uncalled. We've got to be smarter in adjusting to say, okay, the correct play here is to kick the ball out or to stop on 2 feet and pull up or to do something besides hoping for a foul call and trying to draw contact that's not eliciting a whistle. That said, the officiating sure would have been a huge talking point here if the Sixers had lost this game, because though the collapse was largely self-inflicted, I think at least 2 just indisputably really bad missed calls by the officials late in this game.
Kyle Kuzma did the walk.
I'm trying to hold back my laughter.
Yeah.
Kyle Kuzma called the walk on himself. I've never seen that.
He picked up the ball, walked with the ball, put the ball back down. Everyone
was it was a Euro step at the end.
Yeah.
He traveled and carried.
And double dribbled, and yeah.
It was amazing.
And it was the goaltending, I can cut a little slack there, I think, because maybe the angle's hard. You're maybe obscured by Holmes going up for the block. Still a call you should get right. But Kuzma just going down the middle of the floor, everyone's looking at him. That's a double dribble. So Nick Nurse was understandably infuriated there. I think perhaps at times he's focused a little too much on the officiating, you could argue, but that was one where it's no, you got to be standing up for your players there and saying, hey, you just cost us 2 points in a very important game. But to the Sixers' credit, they found a way to win it. Tyrese Maxey the go-ahead layup, Yabusele the clutch block, and decent job, I think, when it mattered and kind of putting the officiating to the side. But it was one of those games where I think, for Maxey in particular, it again felt like the exasperation with the officiating probably led him to force up some shots that were ill-advised. That said, I think the broad point is true. He's going to have 22 plus shots on this sort of night where the Sixers are so shorthanded, turning to rookies off the bench and looking to anyone to create offense for them. So he at least did that much, much better in the second half, and it was necessary to beat the lowly Wizards.
Yeah, the way Nick Nurse shot out onto the court when Kuzma carried the ball, man, that's just, he had to call a timeout. It was just one of those angry, frustrating situations. And we've seen him blow his top, not often for sure, not often, but the Kelly Oubre referee thing comes to mind last year, and on that play where Rashawn Holmes goaltended Tyrese Maxey's shot, Oubre had a block on the other end at the rim that they got called for a foul that was borderline as well. Yeah, so that was an interesting.
He had a great legal block though earlier in the game.
That was where I was about to go next.
Yeah.
Led to a three-pointer, but just was one of those, like the NBA took that, clipped it off and put it on their social media page because it was like
great play.
Yeah, meet you at the top of the mountain, one of those type of things, but very heads-up play by Valanciunas to throw the ball back in, and it led to a three-pointer. But talk about Kelly Oubre, I think he was third or tied for third with 15 points. And, welcome back. It's good to see him in the last game. I think he had a double-double, and then in this game he shows up here and has 15 points, and the celebrations, the joyfulness, and the energy that he plays with is so transparent, and making athletic plays like that. Like, he's fully healthy. There's nothing wrong with him at that point if you're getting up there like that and denying somebody, Valanciunas, just to even have the audacity to get up there where he's like coming in one-handed. It's pretty interesting. But a big win by the 76ers just because they didn't let it fall away at the end there, particularly with shades of that Sacramento Kings game. Where do they go from here heading into the next game? Do you feel like there is momentum to be gained from tonight that will carry into Friday? Hopefully you get a big 3 appearance here against the Pelicans. Zion Williamson is back, could have some cachet there.
Oh, yeah. Zion Williamson looks 100% back. I watched his highlights the other night. He looks fit, very fit, very svelte. He did a windmill dunk. It's terrifying when that guy is healthy.
That's how we met him back in high school. That's
he was like 12 and windmill dunking,
right,
and that exactly. Things have never changed. He's a dynamic player. There's few players that can change the game in such a way for his team when healthy. Anthony Davis comes to mind. He's just an absolute game changer, especially at the rim. In 5 games against the Sixers, obviously not a giant sample size, but in 5 games, Zion Williamson averages 31 points and shoots 66%. I mean, that's just 5. That Joel Embiid has played in some of those games too. So it's not just these. He obviously attacks the rim. We know he's not an outside shooter, but he's a very exciting player to watch. So yeah, I mean, if he plays, I think they have a game on tonight on Thursday. So he's not going to play in this one. So I imagine he'll play on Friday. You got to hope that they have at least one of their big rim protectors back, because Zion Williamson in 31 points. Listen, you showed that. We played a game in the pregame show, and Noah would have gotten all of it right because Noah's very smart. Danny, you would have probably done as well as Mark Jackson, which is, I think, about 50-50. Who is on the Wizards? And we just named people, and you could just guess if they were on the Wizards or not. And it was like 50-50. He got a 50% of them. Like, he knew Jahlil Okafor wasn't. He was with the Mad Ants, but he thought that Joe Ingles was. And you almost lost to a Wizards team because you let a lapse in judgment kind of creep up and let them get a couple of good buckets and open shots and stop moving the ball. And so it's unusual to me, or it's hard for me to think that they're going to let that Pelicans team just – I don't know. If Zion plays, that's a troubling game for me. I had it in as a win, and now I don't know.
Should be a win as long as multiple stars are available. And Nick Nurse did say today that the – players out were, KJ Martin, Andre Drummond, Kyle Lowry, but that means that Joel Embiid and Paul George were back practicing and did see them out there after practice getting up some shots. So if you've got 2 at least of the big 3, the Sixers should be far more talented. Notably, Joel Embiid, if he plays, will match up against another center from Yaounde, Cameroon, in Yves Missi. So I think that would be an intriguing little matchup there. And yeah, obviously Embiid's return, if it happens, I think would give the Sixers a little sigh of relief, given he has had this lingering foot sprain. So yeah, I think you can't take anything for granted these days as the Sixers, but they should, I think, be significant favorites in this basketball game. All of that said, but yeah, they are quite shorthanded now, and they did feel like they were stretched awfully thin last night. Eric Gordon got his first start since opening night. The two rookies played again off the bench. Ricky Council, I think, had a nice appearance, but he was, asked to play a significant role. So yeah, I think it's a situation where it's pretty important that the Sixers have more available bodies, and it does look like we're trending in that direction.
Yeah, so the foot sprain is day to day, but you were at practice, and we kind of buried the lead a little bit there because that's probably the most recent news is what was going on in practice. But did you see Embiid on the side court? Was he getting stretched in the back of the gym, or what? Did you see anything of note there?
Yeah, just after practice, he was putting up some shots, relatively casually, not going through a hard workout or anything, but he did go through the practice. So that's the most notable item, most definitely. And Paul George was doing his typical post-practice stuff with Rico Hines, who always works closely with George, pull-up threes, catch and shoot threes, sort of running through the typical drills in that regard. So, of course, the Sixers have made it known that they will exercise caution with both those guys. I'm sure if either feel below 100%, they probably will sit against a Pelicans team that's at the very bottom of the Western Conference. But yeah, just the fact that both were practicing, both on the court after practice, to me indicates that they have improved health-wise over the past couple of days, and quite possibly at least could play Friday night against New Orleans.
Let's take a quick second to pay some bills and show some love to our sponsors. Of course, we are brought to you by Wilmington University. Wilmington University always holding us down. Advance your career with a graduate degree from Wilmington University at WilMU. Your dream is our mission. Get to know us at wilmu.edu. Back here on the Sixers Talk podcast, Amy having some technical difficulties, and we will try to remedy those and bring her back on the pod.
You guys are just mad at me. I just know it.
Oh, a disembodied voice. I like that.
You can just hear me. You can't see me. It's frozen.
The fact that you had to chime in and your face isn't there.
I'll try to fix it. Sorry.
But, I guess whoever's listening, on a pod, wherever they get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, wherever, but there is no issue that you're like, what's the problem? I can hear her. What's the big deal?
It's still weird. I'll fix it.
Okay. So did the Sixers get an all-star this year?
I don't think so. Tyrese Maxey's got the best case.
Right. But he's like way back there, guards.
Yeah, I mean, the fan voting is only weighted at 25%. And then that's just for the starters, right? So, of course, for the reserves, it's really just what's the opinion of the NBA's head coaches.
Right.
I think, yeah, you could make a case that Maxey should be in the mix with the Eastern Conference all-star guards. He had the Player of the Week campaign recently, but hasn't been able to sustain efficient play. And sure, there's a lot of good excuses for that when you look at how undermanned the Sixers have been. I think NBA head coaches will be more appreciative than the average fan of just how much Maxey's improved defensively, the fact that he's near the top of the league in steals per game, and doing a consistently good job, switching on to a variety of players. So, yeah, I'm sure Tyrese Maxey will be in the discussion with the NBA's head coaches for the reserves, but it seems clear at this point the Sixers are not going to have an all-star starter, and I think it's more likely than not that they've got no one this year, but we'll see how it plays out.
Sad.
That's crazy.
That is sad, man. So sad. You talk about taking a bet. You would have taken that in a heartbeat that the Sixers would get one all-star out of those three guys.
One. You would have thought at least one. But now it's.
I'm trying to think of a way for Gershon to squeeze in there, but he's not a rookie. He's way past.
I will say, and I'm going to say it, and I've said it on here before. I think that Ricky Council and KJ Martin should be in the dunk contest. We saw a great dunk last night from Council. Those guys are super athletes. I'd love to see them in the dunk contest. And I don't think I know obviously they're not household names, but no one really who is in the dunk contest is a big household name anymore. I'd rather see just good dunkers. And make it a real contest with real, kind of implications. Because if you gave those guys $2 million, they'd be really stoked. So that's what I would.
KJ is one of the guys that lost to Mac McClung, so he's got experience. I would love to see him, and I think Council, he brings some firepower and some ferocity to the Duncan that I think would be really, really good on that stage. But trying to think of other possibilities. Like in past years, we've had, I think, George Niang as a good, 3-point contest candidate. I'm not sure the Sixers have anyone for that title. I think their season has been largely characterized by missing a heck of a lot of wide open 3-point shots. So I think it's slim pickings as of now, and I guess that's to be expected when you're 15-20, and the expectation was that things would be going a lot better.
Sad trombone. Brr, brr, brr. Yeah, that's where we are. Any other big overarching topics? I mean, I didn't expect this. I expected this to be like a good time, not a long time type of pod.
Do you want to revisit your 9 games through the Cleveland Cavaliers game? Do you want to revisit that?
Yeah, I got it up here.
You said
so
4 and 5.
A lucky W.
Yeah.
A lucky W, which everyone thought that was a W.
I thought
New Orleans. You probably thought New Orleans and Orlando were W's too, though, right?
I think I thought Orlando, though. Banchero should be back, so that's a little bit more of a wrinkle in there. I mean, they've been really ransacked by injuries. I think I had Pelicans, the Wizards, and then...
You expect OKC to lose to Cleveland last night. That was interesting.
Yeah, maybe Magic, and then I think I picked like one more random one. I don't know. It doesn't look good.
Yeah, a tough 3-game road trip there, and then you pop back home to Cleveland, and we just heard Nick Nurse talk about the difficulty of that first game back after not a long road trip, but definitely a daunting road trip there for the Sixers. So, I mean, so far so good. I mean, they almost upset the apple cart last night, but they get the first win in the road to 4 and 5. 5-4 type of 9-game road trip. You know what I'm saying? The optimism creeping in the back.
They could surprise somebody. I mean, listen, if you get everybody on the court, we've seen them be able to take down some of the best teams, in the league. So there's no doubt. I'm very curious, and we can talk about it next week, which game Joel Embiid plays in. Is it the Thunder or the Knicks? Because preference would be for both. That's obviously not going to happen, I don't think. But at some point, no, they've got to revisit the situation about not playing in these back-to-backs because, and I know Nick Nurse probably has thought about it, but I mean, here we are. They're 15-20. You got to try to get to 40 wins in some semblance. You're not going to get there probably, but you got to think about getting there. And you've got 3 more back-to-backs in this month.
Yep. I mean, I think as Nurse said the other day, his impression is there's going to be a less conservative approach on that front. And certainly his preference is always going to be that he's got the most available players possible. Embiid was chatting with Simon Rice, the Sixers. I think his title is Director of Athlete Care after practice. So they're in frequent dialogue about, what makes sense for Embiid and his body. But it always seems like there's unforeseen obstacles here, like the foot sprain that Embiid picked up in the final minute or two on Christmas Day. But yeah, I think they certainly understand that there's greater urgency here, and the big picture approach is shrinking. The picture is smaller, and it's not a really pretty picture right now in terms of where this team sits in the standings and what's necessary to make up ground here. But yeah, they're trying to take it one day at a time and try to take care of New Orleans tomorrow. I do think, just looking ahead, it is a little bit encouraging that Kelly Oubre Jr. and Caleb Martin have consistently been good on both ends. I think that feels like one of the few dependable, consistent aspects of this team, Yabusele being another. So if those guys can stay healthy and I think continue to be reliably strong at forcing turnovers, chipping in when needed offensively, filling those roles at a high level. Maybe you can have, a slightly greater degree of optimism about the road ahead, but certainly daunting stuff ahead for the Sixers.
And sometimes all you need to do to steal one or two of those games is to have, an Eric Gordon type of game from somebody. Surprisingly, you get, a contribution you don't expect that kind of tips it in your favor or something like that, particularly, against these upper echelon teams. All of a sudden somebody steps to the plate and, plays better than you might expect. And then all of a sudden that, swings things in your favor. So optimism is there. I don't want to be in the play-in. I just don't. Want to be.
Come on, Daniel.
Listen, look at the standings. They could creep into like 5th place, 6th.
Did you just say 5th place?
I said 6th.
No, you started with the word 5, 5th. No, you want to tell him? Stop it.
I did think that was the 5th was amended to 6. I mean, look, 5th and 6th are close right now. We got Milwaukee in 5th at 19 and 16, Indy in 6th at 20 and 18. But the Sixers are 5 games under 500, and the season's halfway point is nearing. So, I think it's looking kind of improbable now, even if many of the factors break the Sixers' way that have not thus far.
It's like they're destined to play the Celtics. It's like them and the Celtics.
Does Julius do the new math?
I don't know. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
He's doing geometry.
Exactly. So, okay, well, there you go. Well, then get your cosine and your all the other stuff going because there is no math in the world that has them in the 5th spot.
Pythagorean theorem.
Oh, yeah. Sakatoa. Who doesn't love
don't get Amy started digging into that deep brain.
We're in the middle of decimals over here and complex fractions with multiplication.
The worst.
No.
The worst.
What about like things that you haven't used in your brain for 30 years? Your brain does not access that. It hasn't needed to. And the thing that you don't tell the children is, and it will never need to access that again. Never in a world will I have to multiply 5 6/5 against 2 1/3. It will never happen. That will never be needed.
I feel like if any question along those lines arises with my work, I take the 1 second to Google it and I get my answer. So
I saw
not to diss the school math system. Critical thinking is being built, I'm sure, but I'm on the same page with you that
they used to say like, oh, you can't use a calculator because you won't be able to have a calculator when you're in the real world. Lies, they told us.
Right. Long division.
Yeah. I do like a good long division. That's very satisfying to me.
If you get it right, when you're like trying to add it back together, you're like,
then you go back together and add together, you're like, I got it.
All right, much love to everyone out there. Much love to all you Sixers fans for enduring what turned into a taxing season. There's really no way to tiptoe around it.
We appreciate you being with us, even if Danny is wearing a Flyers shirt in the middle of a Sixers podcast. He's already abandoned ship, everyone.
Hey, shut up.
Noah and I are with you.
Michkov Mania, Matty Ice. We're
that's not.
Am I reaching? Am I reaching a little?
Yeah.
A little bit. Okay. All right. Much love to everybody out there. Thanks for tuning in, listening, and watching. Check out Noah Levick's work on NBC Sports Philadelphia.com. Amy Fadul will be on Sixers pre and post game live Friday before the Pelicans action, and I'll be around like a circle. We will see you then. Ben Berry, our producer extraordinaire, making things happen behind the scenes. Spencer McKercher made an appearance at one point, also helping out, helping Amy get situated there at the office. But I talk too much. Thanks for everybody. We're brought to you by Wilmington University. Sixers Talk Podcast signing off. We'll see you next time.